Welcome to episode 2 of 7 Million Bikes, a Vietnam podcast. My name's Niall. I'm your host. As always, thank you very much for listening and joining. The guest today is the first French guest on 7 Million Bikes, which is surprising because there are a lot of French people in Vietnam, maybe because I can't speak French. But I'm very excited. Our guest today is the editor-in-chief and founder of Bliss, Saigon, which is a lifestyle magazine based here in Vietnam, and very popular. And she has lived in Vietnam on and off since 1983 and on for quite a while. So I'm excited to introduce Edith Giraudo. So thank you very much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure.
I've had a couple of articles in Bliss, Saigon as well. You did an article on me after I'd been in quarantine.
Yes, indeed.
Way back in March.
Yes, few months.
That was
almost a year, actually. Oh,
wow, yeah.
I mean, time is flying.
Yeah, crazy, isn't it? So, I mean, I know it's nearly going to be 1 year since I got put in quarantine, which it feels like it was last week. Yeah. So you first came to Vietnam in 1983.
Right, yes.
I don't want to embarrass you. I was 1 year old. In 1983.
Really?
So what, you've got a background in art history?
Yes, that's true. Actually, I study art history at the base, and but like a lot of people, art history, art market, but like a lot of people, I didn't work in that field. And at the time, another opportunity came, and I worked mainly in communication, advertising, events a lot,
It's so common, isn't it? I find like the whole system of getting a degree almost seems pointless. Like I barely know anybody who uses their degree.
Yes.
Mine's in sport and exercise science, and I think I used it a tiny bit for about a year after university with some odd jobs here and there, and I've never used sport and exercise science since.
I mean, when you study art, it's because also it's a passion somewhere. So more or less you keep it, a bit of it, through your life, always. You keep an interest on it.
Yeah, I mean, I still like sports, I guess. That's why I did it. I loved sport, and I was like, what can I study for a degree? All right, sports science. I like science as well. I'll do sports science.
Okay.
And I had a plan to have a career in it, and then, life.
Yeah, life takes us somewhere else,
right?
Unexpected most of the time.
Yeah.
But that's why life is beautiful also.
Exactly. And someone once told me it's not so much the subject that is the most important thing. It's the fact that you can show that you can complete a 4-year degree. It's the process of learning and producing whatever is produced at the end of it, whether it's a dissertation or... And you're telling me before you've never been to Scotland as well?
No, I mean, I've never been.
So close.
I wish I went there. But I spent a lot of time in London, and I lived there for 2 years. I mean, when I was almost a kid, let's say, 23, 24. And I came back regularly, but in London, but never been in Scotland.
How far north did you make it? Don't say you've never left London.
Oh, no, of course, I left London. But I remember the south more than the north.
Did you get to Manchester?
Somerset, I remember.
Somerset.
The Somerset.
I think that's further south.
It's more the south, Brighton, Somerset.
That's all south. Did you go north at all?
I don't remember. I mean, maybe if you give me...
Manchester?
No.
Liverpool?
No.
Birmingham?
No, I'm sorry.
See, you just stayed in the deep south.
Yes,
it's warmer there.
Yeah, well, I come from south of France.
Yeah,
so.
fair, sure enough. My first ever trip overseas was to France when I was 16 for a school trip.
Really? Where?
Paris, of course. We went to the Asterix Park.
Oh,
which was
my
fun.
God.
Yeah. And we
16? I mean, you're not too old for Asterix Park. 16?
Maybe we were 15. It was still fun, yeah. And it was we studied French, and I can still only say like one thing. Yeah, I can still only say like one thing in French. And I remember going to France, and it was I think the only French I used was un glace, s'il vous plaît.
Oh, that's not.
And that
I mean, that's good. Your accent is good.
That was about it. That was fine. So what? You've travelled all over. So you lived in Miami, Germany, and London.
Yes.
How did that come about? How did you go from France to these countries and then end up in Vietnam?
As I said, I left France when I was 22, 3, to go in London to take the proficiency a course, and after that, I met my husband, who was from London, and we went to live in Miami for 10 years, more or less,
So what was it like then living in Miami?
Oh, well, at the time, that was great. I mean, Miami Beach, it was less Spanish than now, I guess, It became more Spanish, language, with the time. More Anglo-Saxon at the time, But that was great. I had a great time there. And more or less, it's a bit like the same weather than here in Ho Chi Minh City.
So then where did you go after Miami?
Well, after Miami, I came back in France for a few years, and after that went in Germany, in München, for 6 years, about 6 years, and after that came again in Vietnam, in Ho Chi Minh City.
So when was the first time you came?
But the first time in between.
Oh, you've been in between, right?
Yes, because in between, in around 83, 85, I made a break in my, communication career. And I decided I wanted to come to work in something more creative, And so I worked in decorations, design stuff, things. So at that time, for 6 years, I came in Ho Chi Minh City about 1 week every month for 6 years.
From France. From Europe, from France.
Yes.
For a week. What was the travel like back then?
That was a bit more complicated.
Yeah.
At the time, I used to take mainly Air France, but you had to stop in Bangkok for many, many years. After it changed, and you had to stop to Singapore in between, And
That's a long commute to do that once a week, to do it for a week every month.
Yeah, well, you have to like to travel.
So I'm just really fascinated to find out what was Saigon like in 1983? What was Vietnam like? It's now that, it's 40 years ago now. It must have been. I've been in Vietnam for 4 years, and I have watched it change dramatically. Saigon, anyway, for sure. Like, it's just growing. Like, places that used to be a swamp now have sprawling housing complexes. Landmark 81 wasn't here before. Now it's I think the tallest building in Southeast Asia. That's happened in 4 years. What was Vietnam like 40 years ago?
Well, in 83, 85, as you can imagine, it was extremely different. You didn't have any coffee bar. You didn't have any restaurant. You just had some big hotel, like the Rex Hotel and all the other big one, And, of course, the language, was also a problem. You had to have a translator with you all the time, because now, in Vietnam, and especially in Saigon, in Ho Chi Minh City, most of people, are speaking they're trying to speak such a good English,
I've noticed it increasing just 4 years before.
It's increasing. In France, I'm sure they don't even speak so well English, So, but at the time, it was, of course, a problem. But I already loved that country. That's why when I had the opportunity to come back 10 years ago, it's what I did.
So what made you... It's just something that's so common with Vietnam, and I had this conversation this week. There's something about Vietnam that just draws you here, and it's written in books, where it's a quiet American or whatever. Like, there's just something about Vietnam that people, expats from France, England, America, Scotland, wherever, just love it here. And even talking with friends this week, we almost can't put our finger on it. Like, we don't almost know why we love it? There's just like an energy, or there's some. What for you made you fall in love with it?
Well, of course, I mean, Ho Chi Minh City has an energy, a fantastic energy. I mean, I never saw that. I traveled a lot, but I almost never saw that anywhere else. So there is something very, very surprising and very dynamic in Saigon. People are happy. Foreigners are happy. Vietnamese people are happy. Of course, I mean, life is hard, but it's hard like everywhere else in the world. But Vietnamese are very optimistic people. And maybe you're not going to believe it, but at the time, at least in 83, 85, I felt more free here in Vietnam than I did in Europe.
No, I totally agree. I have conversation with friends, and we agree. We feel, even now, we feel much more free in Vietnam than
Yes,
our home countries.
absolutely.
Do you think it's interesting you say about the happiness, and I completely agree. And is this too simplistic? But do you think it's the weather?
It can be. Actually, you know, I'm like a bit like you. I asked myself the question. I wonder, you know, and say to myself, you know, what is it in the air? You know, there is something special in the air. We feel like, I don't know, like for us, foreigner, it's like if we live like in the bubble, you know, like in the dream. And talking about something in the air, my favorite time, it's around 5, 6 o'clock in Ho Chi Minh City.
When the sun's going down.
Yes, yep. And I love to be in District 1. Don't tell me, you know, it's too trendy, but I love to be in District 1 in around 5 o'clock, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I cannot explain it.
No, I think it is because the sun, that change of the sun going down, I completely agree. Because even last night, we looked out of our window, my wife and we were like, look at the sun, the colours. And it's year round. And I remember when we first came to Southeast Asia, and almost our first night in Bangkok, and watching the red hot sun going down between the buildings and the light that's cast, and it's this kind of purpley red pink colour that you don't get in Scotland because you barely see the sun in Scotland. And I lived in New Zealand, and it's just different. The sky is different. The sun is different. Yeah. We're in a different place. We're near the equator, so the light is different, you know. And the reason I think is that the weather. Partly one of the biggest reasons I left Scotland is the weather. Like, I hate it. It rains all the time. It's cold. It's wet. It's windy. Yes. It's miserable. It's just so miserable. Yeah. I was almost always cold and wet. And then I lived in America where it was warm and it was sunny and the people are warm and sunny. And
where did you live in America?
Rhode Island.
Oh, okay.
And even in winter when it was cold in America, like minus 20 degrees, but it was still sunny with blue skies. Whereas in Scotland, it's just grey and miserable and wet.
Yes, but I heard that Scottish people are fantastic.
They are, but they're also miserable at the same time. That's because they're drunk all the time. No, I make fun of Scottish people for being drunk. We're not all drunk all the time.
And the whiskey also, of
The whiskey does help.
And the ghost.
Yeah. But to go back to the weather, which I know is a boring subject, but what I've discussed with my wife and other people is the fact that Saigon, the weather is just consistently warm. You can wear shorts and T-shirt all year round, which is the difference to Hanoi, whereas Hanoi gets really cold in the winter and really hot in the summer.
Did you hear that from this Sunday to this Monday is going to drop 18 degrees Celsius?
I did. I saw that. It's going to drop to 18 overnight.
Oh, my.
But this is one of the funny things is we're talking about 18 degrees being cold. And I remember a couple of years ago when I was teaching and it went down to 22 degrees and all the students came in the morning and they were all wearing hats and scarves and gloves. And I was like, in Scotland, if it gets to 18 degrees, everyone's at the park with their T-shirts off and everyone's having barbecues and it's like 18 degrees is a warm day. But your point of you kind of acclimatise, right? And everyone's like, oh my goodness, 18 is going to be cold.
Yes. But, you know, I mean, that surprises people very often. But you can be cold even with 30, 40 degrees. I mean, here in Saigon, I mean, I can be cold sometimes.
I know what you mean, yeah. To go back again, what is it funny what you said is about you had a translator?
Yes.
It's crazy to think where we've come with technology that 40 years you had to have a human being translator with you.
Yes.
And now we have a phone
Google.
with a translator on our phone, which is not perfect, but
It helps.
you can get by, right?
Yes.
Now, I have a question for you. You came here first time nearly 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Do you speak Vietnamese?
No, still not. You know why? I mean, I'm telling you. At the time, I was just there once, a week every month. Okay, for a long time. But after that, I tried 10 years ago. I took some course with my husband, actually, for a few months. And he was so difficult for us, so difficult.
We talk about it on nearly every episode, and I talk about it on stage when I do stand-up. And I feel guilty, but I mean, you've been here longer than me. It is so difficult, and it's quite demoralizing.
I feel sorry, sometimes, because living in a country, you can only access, to people really if you speak the language.
Yeah.
And but we have really tried.
Yeah.
But
I haven't even tried, and I feel bad because the reason why I haven't tried, one is I'm bad at languages just off the bat.
Yes.
Two, I never expected to be here this long, so I didn't really try in the beginning, and then time went by, and suddenly it was like, oh my goodness. But one of the things, it is so difficult. I can't even say people's names correctly. You know what I mean? Like the difference between NGHI and NHI.
Yes.
And I'm like, if I can't even say your name correctly, how am I going to learn the language? And
it's a language very, very different. Yeah. And I don't know if you speak already another language.
No, at least you speak another language. I barely speak English.
Okay. So sometimes it's difficult. Yeah. But, for me anyway, and I regret. But, now, as I said, Vietnamese people speak such a good English.
Exactly. The other side of the coin is, even in the beginning when I tried to speak a little bit of Vietnamese, they would speak back in English because they want to try and practice that English,
they want to
which doesn't give you the opportunity.
Yes.
And then the other point is, and I talked with a friend about this, when you do try and speak Vietnamese, they often laugh at you.
Yeah.
And they're not being mean. But it really, like just last week,
because we make them laugh.
Yeah, last week we were in Dalat, and I just tried to ask for a beer at a little roadside kind of convenience store, and I just tried to say, cho tôi hai beer, which I believe says, please give me 2 beers. And there were 2 guys that were walking away, and they all started laughing and pointing at me. And they weren't being
because
mean, but it makes you feel really small. You're like, oh my God,
Because I think, the intonation, Vietnamese language, it's very much on intonation.
Yeah.
And only one little difference can change the meaning, So I guess when we try to speak Vietnamese, we can say
really bad words.
We say sometimes funny things.
Yeah. So you were here on and off 83 to 85. What, I know this is really, I sound like such a bougie person, but I'm assuming there was no aircon?
No, of course.
It must have been hot.
No.
Like in April, it gets so hot. Like, how did you cope with that?
Well, we had to, that's all.
Yeah.
And, at the time, you also, you didn't have all the comforts that you have today. I remember at the time, that was the time of the fax, Yeah, for business, we used at the time
no
fax.
Text messaging.
So no text, no phone, no iPhone. And so it was very difficult because we had to go to the post office. Because you couldn't do it from the hotel. You had to go to the post office and get an agreement and they used to send it,
It's crazy to think how slow life must have been just getting things done. Like to just send a message, you have to go to the post office. Whereas now we just send a message and instantly, like.
Yes, it's true. Yes. But it was, I really liked it. During all this year also, It was not, you cannot compare yesterday and today. You live different things. And, but I liked before. I liked 20 years ago or 30 years ago. Really? And I like today also.
No, I like that. So you were coming on and off, and then after 85, then where did you live?
After 85, I mean, when I was coming in I was living in France. And after I went in Germany, in München.
Yeah.
And after I came with my husband, because he's a teacher in philosophy, at Lycée Marguerite Duras. So we came here.
Right.
Because when he had the opportunity, I said, yes, let's do it.
So he was teaching philosophy at like a French university or French school here?
No, he was teaching philosophy at the lycée, the French school, in München. And after, he had a new contract to teach philosophy in the French school in Marguerite Duras in Saigon.
Nice. And then, so what were the biggest differences that you saw then when you came back to Saigon? How long had you been away from Saigon at this point?
6 years.
Right. And I
came back,
much?
And when I came back 10 years ago, of course, I expected a bit. I mean, I thought it would have changed, but I didn't expect that it changed so much.
Okay. So what were the biggest changes then in that 6 years?
Well, in everything. I mean, in the infrastructure, on the road, on the comfort mainly, on getting access to internet, and all that things, finding also products, that food that you couldn't find before, like, I don't know, cream, butter, milk. I mean, milk, yes, but, product that foreigners like, So, yes, and he improved, and I saw that, improving year after year. 10 years ago, you only had few shops in District 1, 2 shops, 3 shops where you could find, foreigners' products. Now, I mean, come on, you have Metro, Big C, I mean, you can find more or less, everything.
It's I guess only being here 4 years, I almost missed that experience of not being able to find stuff, because since I've been here, it's pretty much been consistent and more and more and more.
Yes.
And then in terms of shopping, like retail shopping, there's shopping malls have sprung up. You can get H&M and now Uniqlo.
Yes.
And so it was interesting coming here that we kind of knew that there was things that you might not be able to get, but now it's at the point where there's almost nothing that you can't get.
That's why, as I said, if you ask me the question, did you prefer before or now, I would say I liked it a lot before, but I also like it today, because now we can have, as a foreigners, a very good quality life and not expensive, and have a very good comfort and find all the products we like.
But you will pay more for the product from overseas.
Yes, of course, we pay 2-3 times the price. Yes.
It makes me laugh. I've gone into like Annam Gourmet, which is the kind of retail fancy, all the overseas product. And it will have like so for example, there's a Scottish soft drink called Iron Brew. And it'll have the can of Iron Brew, and it will say on the can 29 pence, but the actual price is like 4 times as much as that. It says on the. I know obviously they've got import price. I understand why it's more expensive, but when you see the price on the can, it's like, oh my goodness. To go back to something you mentioned earlier about living as a foreigner feels like in a bubble. And I do agree completely. And I think part of that is most of us can't speak the language. I've only met a couple of foreigners who can speak it.
Yes.
And so I was talking to a friend just this week and saying how I've lived here 4 years. I love Vietnam, but it has never felt like home. Like it doesn't feel like home. And I think I could live here for 10 more years and I would still never feel like it's a home.
It's funny you say that, It's funny you say that, because actually I don't speak Vietnamese, but if I am still in Vietnam, it's because I feel at home.
Oh, interesting, okay.
And I don't speak the language.
Yeah.
And that's really the truth. You know what I liked, and why I came back in Vietnam? It's because I felt very well welcomed, honestly. And even if, I didn't feel so welcome in America, honestly, not so welcome, in London, in München. Yes, I was welcome also, but it was much better Yeah, honestly. And even if I don't speak the language, my home is here.
Ah, cool. So you think you'll be here for
A long time.
a long time? Can't say forever, right? But
I can't say forever. You can never say forever.
yeah. So your background is in communications, and so
Yes.
what kind of communications had you done in the past?
Well, in communication, I used to work for the press resume, doing things, the press rendezvous, what you call, for events, cultural, a lot of cultural events. I used to work for a big organization organizing a big event about big philosopher, mainly sociologist, artist, big things like that. Not like event like wedding, no. And yes, I worked in that field, more or less.
And so then tell me about how did Bliss Saigon come about?
Oh, well, as I say to you, I worked in press, communication, also advertising, and we came. Well, I still ask myself the question, actually.
What was the impetus? Did you see that there was a gap that you wanted to fill? Or?
It started. Bliss Saigon actually wasn't called at the beginning Bliss. We decided, we were a bunch of friends, thinking, okay, we're going to do something funny. So we wanted to call it Yes magazine, but Yes was already taken because it's an American
Yeah,
magazine.
I was about to say that, not already.
So to not create any confusion, we found the name of Bliss. It started like that, okay. Of course, other magazines, some other, not very much, existed at the time. Saigon Oi, and Word was closing at the time, and good magazine, Word magazine. And so we thought, okay, let's start to play. That was for fun. And after it became more and more serious, and some people went, new people came in, and we're still there.
Was it print initially or always online?
No, mainly online, but we did also printing. We started to print just before COVID, so we had to stop.
Oh, no. Right. What made you want to do print? Because you always hear about print presses are dying.
Yes, we print
industry.
one edition, actually.
Just one?
Just one. After came the COVID, and we couldn't. Why printing paper? Because I guess it's my mainly. We think that, and I think that paper is different from virtual world, and I like the paper.
Just a personal choice then.
I like the paper, I like the book, I like read, and really read on the tablet, or it's not the same. It's definitely not the same.
Yeah.
For me.
So I've slowly, well, not even slowly, I've converted now. I've started reading books on a Kindle.
Yeah, I don't like it.
I really like it. I quite enjoy it. It's just nice having.
It's convenient. Yeah.
It's really convenient. It's small. It's light. It's easy to use. Yeah, but so I don't know. I
don't know.
I know what you mean.
Imagine, see yourself. When you take a book and you turn the page through the paper, it's like you feel time flying.
Yeah.
The past, the future, so many emotions. I don't know.
I know what you mean. Reading the Kindle, I'm just reading a book on it right now. It tells you at the bottom what percentage of the book you're through. And that really does help. Like, it's like, I'm 60% through. So you can almost visualize, like, this is how much I have left, So what's next for Bliss Saigon then?
Well, since COVID, of course, the times are a bit difficult, for every business in lifestyle, hotel, restaurant, everything.
And I'm assuming they would have been a lot of your advertisers.
Yes. And, but anyway, we continue. We're still there. 8 in the team, we are American, Australian, Vietnamese, of course, and French. So the team, I've got extremely lucky to have since about 2 years, great people around me, you know, and very faithful Vietnamese partner, and very faithful, American and Australian and also French people and friends, you know. So I don't have to complain. We don't have to complain. And we're still there. I mean, we try to help also the community, you know, as much as we can. We advertise a lot now, even free, you know, for people to help them, for restaurant, hotel, for many activities, you know. Of course, we also need to make money, of course, but we keep a big part naturally for talking about the things we like first. It's not money first; it's things we like, and also we like to try to help all the communities, you know, around.
That's awesome. And I assume that...
And we are now, since actually 2 days, in Vietnamese also, in English and Vietnamese.
So do you have to hire a whole new staff member to translate everything into Vietnamese?
Of course, we have a translator.
Yeah, but was that like a new position, or you had an existing staff member that you were like, okay, you need to translate now?
Oh, no, because in Vietnamese, we had to have a new translator, Vietnamese translator. And of course, because people are writing American in English and write article in English, so that's okay, mainly.
Yeah.
I also write sometime, you know, when you need, you know, to do it. But I write also in English. And sorry?
Any plans for a French version?
We had before.
Yeah.
But, you know, we had to take it off because we had... On the website, you cannot have 3 languages. It's too heavy.
Oh, really? Does it slow it down?
Yes. So it's because we use... At Bliss, we like the very good quality image. So if you do it in 3 languages, it's very, very heavy. So you have to keep only 2. So before we were in English and French, and now we have shows to be in English and Vietnamese.
So I assume with your website, you get to see where people are viewing your website from. Do you have many international viewers, or is it all mainly in Vietnam?
Oh, no. Of course, it's international. I mean, you know, you have from Vietnam, of course, mainly, but also, I mean, we have people contacting us professionally from Hong Kong or Singapore or even Malaysia or, you know, America also. Because you know what? I mean, Vietnamese community are everywhere in the world. And so Vietnamese people feel very concerned, you know, if they live abroad. It's like you. I mean, come on, I'm sure, you know, I mean, you're Scottish living in Vietnam, but I'm sure that you're reading a Scottish magazine sometime, no?
I was hoping you weren't going to finish that sentence. No, not at all. I'm terrible. The only thing I read is the football, the soccer, and I read about English soccer, not even Scottish soccer. So I do sometimes get people ask me about, like, how's things in Scotland or blah, blah, and I'm like, I actually don't know. I don't follow it yet. That's just pretty bad. I know. Right, so we'll finish up. This has been really interesting. I always love hearing about the change in Vietnam and the change in Saigon, because I've seen it in 4 years, and I can't imagine what it was like, you know, in the 80s. And I really like your point of view about it's not better, it's just kind of different.
It's different.
Which is a similar topic we covered in the last episode with Kelso, and we were talking about the difference between Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. And she says that, you know, it's not about which one is better, they're just different. But I think in general, we always like to try and think of the way which one's better, you know, which is one of the questions I'm about to ask you in a second. But so at the end of each episode, I always ask the same set of questions so we can compare answers across guests. And the first one is that, as you know, the name of the podcast is 7 Million Bikes, because there are over 7 million bikes in Saigon. Actually, I think there's over 8 million now. Do you drive a bike here?
No, I don't. I mean, I'm not very good at it. I have to say, I have to confess, you know.
So do you go on grab bike, or
yes,
you go on the back of a grab bike?
Of course,
right.
Yes. But even in '83, I mean, you know, I used to. That was that. I mean, you had the
Cyclos?
cyclos at the time, you know, and so yes, it's I'm used to that.
So you understand the way the roads work here?
Yes.
So what would be an unwritten road rule that you think you couldn't live without?
Yeah, actually, if I was going to do some humor, I would say walk on the wild side. But no, you know, I mean, I think that people mainly should anticipate more when they drive, you know. But I could say that, you know, for every country. You know?
It's true. It's actually funny you said that, because literally on the way here, there was a guy in front of me. And you do really get good at just watching people. Like, I could see his head kind of like looking, and I was like, okay, he's going to do something, but I don't know what. So I slowed down because I was like, I don't know, is he going left? Is he going right? He's not indicating.
I'm going to give you an advice.
Go on.
Watch the wheel.
Watch the wheel.
The wheel.
Yeah, there you go. All right, there's advice for everyone. Watch the wheel. The
wheel of the car or the wheel of the motorbike.
See, I mostly watch the kind of head, the body language. Like, what are they going to do? Watch the wheel. That's a good one. All right, now we know that you don't speak Vietnamese fluently anyway.
No.
What's your most useful Vietnamese phrase?
Oh, that's very common. Ben you.
What's that mean?
How much?
Oh.
I'm not very good with the accent.
Say it again.
Well, Ben, bao nhiêu.
Bao nhiêu, yeah. That's a really useful one. And that's probably one of the first things I learned. And I learned the money pretty quickly, or like the numbers. Mm-hmm. And still to this day, I find it funny because I will ask bao nhiêu, which means I'm speaking in Vietnamese. And I think that means you could speak Vietnamese back and I will understand. But they'll speak to me in English, or they'll show me the number on a calculator, and I'm like, you could tell me the number. I still might not understand, but there's a chance that I might understand. Bao nhiêu is very, very useful. All right, next one. What's your favorite sunset spot in Vietnam?
I would say my place, actually, because really? I'm lucky to live by the river, not in Tao Dien, but on the other side, you know, on when you go on Tran Nao. You have many little streets who goes by the river, and I'm just in the front on the Vim Home and the landmark 81.
You overlook that
on the other side of the river.
Yeah. So don't give your address away. You love people.
Oh no! I'm not going to. But I want to explain. By the river there, you know, just in front of the landmark, and you know, the Vinhom. You have the sunset. The sunset goes down, so you can see it between the tower, you know, and things.
I know exactly, because I work just on Chan now, and the sun. We can see the sunset at that time of day, and it's that's a good one. That's a really spectacular sunset spot for sure. Now, you've kind of answered this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, and you have to give an answer, okay? So, would you rather live in Vietnam now or 20 years ago?
I would say now.
Yeah.
And you know why? Because now it's always the best time.
I like that you're French. You're so philosophical. The French people are like, they have the philosophical nature ingrained into them.
Don't believe that.
No?
No, don't believe that. It's not true.
I think so, because you learn philosophy a lot more, I think, right, in school? Or am I just being completely stereotypical?
It's different. The study are different, of course, than America and Europe. For example, in philosophy, doesn't mean exactly the same thing. The course in America and you know, in Europe, philosophy is more coming from the Greek and all the, you know. In America, when you say you study philosophy, it's more sociology or psychology. Right. I think.
Okay, I like that. So now, because it's better. And then we talked a lot about how you can get much more in Vietnam, but the last question, what's missing from Vietnam?
The weather, but it's going to drop 18 degrees Celsius soon, so...
So you miss the cold weather?
A little bit.
Yeah.
But you know, when you meet, the season, the changement of seasons. But we are lucky also, you know, because we're not very far from Dalat or from, you know... We can take a bus even. It's not expensive, and we go to Dalat. And we have another weather. Yeah. So, I mean, what best can we have?
Yeah, there you go. I just went to Dalat for Christmas, and it was just amazing. And it's interesting you say that about the seasons, right? Because I was just talking earlier how it's amazing here because there are no seasons because it's just warm all the time. And it's like, you know, it's like, well... It goes both ways, right? We miss the seasons, but I really like the fact that...
I would say one thing, you know, that the season allows you to see time flying.
Passage of time, for absolutely. We've talked about this.
Because when you live always, on the same terms, on the same, you don't see the time going and years going.
No, 100%. And I've had this discussion with friends. We've been here 4 years, and it's hard sometimes to be like, what year was it that happened? When was it? Because there's no winter to be like, oh, that was the end of...
I don't have the feeling, to have been there and living here since 10 years.
Yeah.
It looks like 4 or 5 years,
I 100%, I have had the same feeling as well, yeah. So we're going to finish up. So before we go finish up, first of all, thank you so much. I've been looking forward to this podcast.
Well, thanks to you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you very much. As I said, I was featured on Bliss Saigon. I wrote an article about my stay in quarantine, which you can also listen to. A season about that. We made season 3 was basically all recorded from quarantine, so you can hear that full story there. But if you want to read about it, but tell the listeners, where can they find Bliss Saigon? What's next for Bliss Saigon? Why should they read it? Tell us all about that.
Well, I mean, they can find easily Bliss Saigon, just on internet, blisssaigon.com, and on Facebook, of course, and Instagram, of course. Why they should read it? Because, well, I mean, we give some very funny news, and we talk about Saigon a lot, and Vietnam also, and other country, of course. But it's not, I would say, that our content is not boring. So read it, and discover it.
And we'll put a link in the show notes so that you can find Bliss Saigon easy enough as well. All right. Well, thank you very much, Edith Giraudo. I got to practice my French pronunciation. But yeah, thank you very much. And thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed that. And have a good day.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're like me, you may use your laptop at places where you have to use public Wi-Fi. This opens you up to digital snoopers. It's a massive problem. It can be your internet service provider, or you know who, looking at what you do online, or a cyber criminal trying to steal your bank passwords or credit card info, or even a hacker at the next table trying to steal your sensitive data. These days, it is vital that you keep your data safe. NordVPN keeps all of these snoopers away. It makes your internet activity private, protects you from accessing dangerous websites that are phishing for your data, and lets you enjoy your favorite content securely, even while away from home. And it's easy to use, even I could use it. I've actually been using NordVPN for years now here in Vietnam, and I'm excited to be an affiliate partner with them. I've used NordVPN to watch Netflix, BBC, Disney Plus with ease. And I also know that my information and data are safe from prying eyes, whoever they may be. Join now and you'll get 68% off and 3 months free when you go to my link, nordvpn.com/SMB. Just again, for those hard of hearing, nordvpn.com/SMB. The link is also in the show notes. I know nobody checks them out, but go check that out and you can get the link from wherever you are listening to this podcast. As an affiliate partner, it also means that I will get a small commission when you sign up, but at no extra cost to you. So not only will you be getting a great deal through 7 Million Bikes, you get a great VPN and you'll be supporting 7 Million Bikes podcast. Stay safe online and enjoy the shows you love. Any questions, just let me know. You know how to get in touch with me. And thanks for listening to this show. Cheers.